You're sitting at your desk, late afternoon, the kind of quiet moment where the world finally stops buzzing. Your phone lights up, your daughter's name across the screen. You smile, instinctively, you answer. But what comes through the speaker isn't a hello, it's a scream, a panicked breath, a voice you know better than your own heartbeat. Dad, please, something's wrong. I need help. Your chest tightens. Every parental instinct fires at once. You stand up without realizing it. You ask what happened. You ask where she is. You ask who's with her. Her voice shakes, cracks, pleads. Please, just send the money. I don't have time. Your mind races. You're already reaching for your keys. You're already imagining the worst. You're already preparing to do whatever it takes. And then the call drops. You stare at the phone, frozen. You try calling back, no answer. You try again, nothing. Your pulse is hammering. Your thoughts are spiraling. You're seconds away from transferring money to an account you've never seen before. And then your phone rings again. It's your daughter, your real daughter, calm, safe, confused. Dad, why are you calling me? What's going on? That's when the truth hits. The voice you heard, the fear, the urgency, the desperation, none of it was real. It was an AI-generated clone, a perfect imitation, a synthetic voice engineered to bypass your logic and go straight for your heart. This is the new frontier of cybercrime, not just stealing data, not just stealing money, but hijacking the voices of the people we love when weaponizing our trust. Welcome to today's episode, The Voice That Wasn't Them, AI Cloning Scams, and the New Emotional Cybercrime. Let's talk about how this happens, why it works, and what you can do to protect the people who matter most. In 2026, the digital world feels more personal than ever. We post videos, we leave voice messages, we hop on live streams, we record webinars, we send audio texts. Our voices, the most intimate biometric signature we have, are everywhere. And that's exactly why this scam works so well today. Voice cloning used to be a high-end research lab capability. You needed specialized hardware, deep technical knowledge, and hours of clean audio. But in 2026, the barrier to entry has collapsed. Anyone with a laptop and a few minutes of your voice can build a shockingly accurate clone. And where do scammers get that audio? From us, from our digital lives, a birthday video on Facebook, a product demo on YouTube, a quick, hey, call me back voicemail, a podcast interview, a live stream Q&A, all of it becomes raw material. All of it becomes training data. And the tools themselves are fast, cheap, and frighteningly good. They don't just mimic tone, they capture breathing patterns, emotional inflection, stress, laughter, even the way someone hesitates when they're scared. The synthetic voices of 2026 don't sound robotic. They sound human. They sound familiar. They sound like someone you love. And that's the real danger. This scam doesn't rely on hacking your devices. It hacks your instincts. It hacks your relationships. It hacks your emotions. Scammers know that when you hear a loved one in distress, your brain doesn't analyze. It reacts. You don't question authenticity. You respond to urgency. You don't think about digital safety. You think about protecting your family. This is why the scam works. Not because the technology is advanced, though it is, but because the emotional trigger is ancient. In 2026, AI voice cloning has become the perfect weapon for exploiting the most human part of us, our desire to help the people we care about. And that's the stage we're standing on today. A world where our voices can be copied, our trust can be manipulated, and our instincts can be turned against us. Now let's break down exactly how these scammers operate. To understand how these AI voice scams work, you have to see the playbook. because it's not random and it's not improvised. It's a system, a workflow, a repeatable operation built on technology, psychology, and speed. Here's how it unfolds. First, the scammers gather audio. They don't need much, 5, 10, maybe 20 seconds of someone speaking. And in 2026, that's easy. A TikTok clip, a voicemail greeting, a live stream, a podcast interview, even a quick happy birthday video posted by a relative. Every piece of audio becomes training data. Next, they feed that audio into a voice cloning model. These aren't high-end studio tools. They're consumer-grade, subscription-based, drag-and-drop interfaces. The kind of AI voice systems that were designed for creators, educators, and businesses, but now exploited by criminals. Within minutes, the model produces a near-perfect replica. Not just the tone, not just the pitch, but the breathing patterns, the emotional cadence, the subtle hesitations that make a voice feel alive. Then comes the setup. Scammers craft a crisis scenario, something designed to bypass logic and hit straight at the emotional core. A kidnapping, a car accident, an arrest, a medical emergency, a situation where fear overrides critical thinking. They script the moment. They generate the voice. They add background noise, crying, traffic, muffled shouting, all created by AI. And then they make the call. The victim hears the voice of someone they love in distress. The panic is immediate, and the instinct to help is overwhelming. And the scammers know exactly how to exploit that moment. They demand secrecy. They demand urgency. They demand money, usually through untraceable channels like cryptocurrency, prepaid cards, or instant transfer apps. They keep the victim emotionally isolated. They keep them talking. They keep them scared, because the longer the victim stays in that emotional tunnel, the less likely they are to question anything. And once the money is sent, the scammers vanish. The synthetic voice disappears, the crisis evaporates, and the victim is left with the crushing realization that none of it was real. This is how AI voice scams operate in 2026, fast targeted, emotionally engineered, and powered by technology that can replicate the people we trust most. In the next segment, we'll break down the technology behind these synthetic voices and why they're so convincing. To understand why these scams are so effective, you have to understand the technology powering them, because the voices we're hearing today aren't stitched together from old recordings or pieced together from soundboards. They're generated by advanced AI systems designed to replicate human speech with near-perfect fidelity. And in 2026, that technology has matured into something both remarkable and dangerous. Voice cloning models today are built on deep neural networks trained on massive data sets of human speech. These systems don't just learn how words sound, they learn how people sound. They capture the micro details that make a voice feel real. Breathiness, pacing, emotional tone, even the tiny imperfections that give a voice its personality. The process is shockingly simple. Feed the model a few seconds of audio, sometimes as little as 5 or 10 seconds, and it begins mapping the speaker's vocal fingerprint. It analyzes pitch, resonance, rhythm, and the unique patterns that make your voice yours. Then it builds a synthetic version capable of saying anything the scammer types into a text box. And the output, it's not robotic, it's not glitchy, it's not monotone, it's fluid, it's expressive, it's emotionally convincing. Modern voice synthesis can generate panic, crying, urgency, whispering, shouting, all of it artificially produced, all of it frighteningly believable. Background noise can be added with the same AI tools. Traffic, muffled voices, a chaotic room, even the sound of someone sobbing. The entire emotional scene can be manufactured in seconds. What makes this even more dangerous is accessibility. These tools aren't hidden in underground forums. They're mainstream. They're marketed to creators, educators, and businesses. They're easy to use, cheap to access, and require no technical expertise. The same technology that lets a teacher create audio lessons or a filmmaker dub dialogue is now being weaponized by criminals. And the models are getting better every month. Higher fidelity, more emotional range, less detectable artifacts, more seamless integration with video and live calls. This is the technological reality of 2026. Synthetic voices are indistinguishable from real ones, and the tools to create them are widely available. The crime isn't just about cloning a voice, it's about cloning trust. And that's what makes this threat so uniquely powerful. In the next segment, we'll look at real cases and emerging trends, and how this new wave of emotional cybercrime is impacting families, businesses, and communities across the country. In 2026, AI-driven voice scams have moved from isolated incidents to a recognizable global trend. Law enforcement agencies, cybersecurity analysts, and consumer protection groups are all reporting the same pattern. Criminals are no longer just stealing identities, they're stealing voices. Let's walk through what's happening out there, without sensationalism and without graphic detail, just the facts. Across the United States, police departments have documented a rise in emergency-based voice clone scams targeting parents and grandparents. The setup is almost always the same: a loved one's voice, a crisis scenario, and a demand for immediate payment. In many cases, victims describe the synthetic voice as indistinguishable from the real person. That's the level of fidelity we're dealing with. Financial institutions are seeing similar cases. Banks and fraud teams report customers arriving in branches shaken and confused, convinced they just heard a family member in danger. When investigators trace the calls, they find no kidnapping, no accident, no emergency, only a cloned voice and a burner number. The emotional impact is often greater than the financial loss. Businesses are being targeted too. Executives have reported receiving AI-generated calls from colleagues authorizing urgent wire transfers. Some companies have implemented verification codes or multi-step confirmation processes because the synthetic voices used in these scams sound exactly like their leadership teams. Internationally, the trend is the same. In Canada, Australia, the UK, and parts of Europe, consumer protection agencies have issued warnings about voice cloning fraud. The cases vary: fake medical emergencies, fake arrests, fake travel incidents, but the core tactic remains consistent. Use a trusted voice to create panic, then exploit that panic for money. Cybersecurity firms tracking these incidents note that scammers are becoming more organized. They're using AI tools to generate not just voices, but entire emotional scenes, background noise, distressed breathing, even simulated crying. These elements make the call feel urgent, chaotic, and real. And the most important trend? Victims consistently say the same thing. I didn't stop to think. I reacted because it sounded like someone I love. That's the power of these scams. Not the technology, but the emotional leverage. As we move forward, understanding these real-world patterns helps us recognize the warning signs and build defenses that protect both our wallets and our peace of mind. Next, we'll talk about how you can protect yourself and your family from this new wave of emotional cybercrime. When it comes to AI voice scams, the most powerful defense isn't technical, it's human. It's awareness, preparation, and a few simple habits that turn panic into clarity. Here's how you can protect yourself and the people you care about. First, establish a family verification code, a single word or phrase that everyone agrees to use in a real emergency. It should be easy to remember, but impossible for a stranger to guess. If you ever receive a distress call, ask for the code. If the caller can't provide it, you know something is wrong. Second, use a callback protocol. If you get a frightening call, especially one demanding money, pause. Tell the caller you're hanging up and calling the person directly. Scammers rely on emotional momentum. Breaking that momentum is one of the strongest tools you have. Third, recognize the red flags. Scammers push urgency. They insist on secrecy. They demand fast payment through methods that can't be reversed. Real emergencies don't follow that script. When you hear those patterns, step back and reassess. Fourth, talk openly with your family. Make sure everyone understands that their voice can be cloned from public audio. Encourage loved ones to limit unnecessary voice posts online, especially children and older adults who are often targeted. You don't need to be silent on the internet, but you should be intentional. Fifth, verify before you act. If the call claims someone is hurt, arrested, or in danger, contact the authorities directly. Call hospitals, call schools, call the person's friends. The goal is to break the isolation the scammer is trying to create. Sixth, protect your financial accounts. Enable multi-factor authentication. Set up transaction alerts. Use spending limits where possible. These steps won't stop a voice scam, but they can prevent a moment of panic from turning into a large financial loss. And finally, remember this. In an emotional crisis, your instincts will tell you to act fast. But in the world of AI voice cloning, the safest thing you can do is slow down. Take a breath. Verify the situation. Reach out through trusted channels. You're not just protecting your money, you're protecting your peace of mind. In the next segment, we'll look at how industry and policymakers are responding to this new wave of emotional cybercrime and what safeguards may be coming next. As AI voice cloning becomes more accessible, industries and policymakers are racing to respond. And in 2026, that response is finally taking shape. It's not perfect and it's not fast enough for everyone's comfort, but the momentum is real. Let's break down what's happening across the technology landscape, the regulatory world, and the broader cybersecurity ecosystem. Tech companies are taking the first steps. Major AI platforms are rolling out voice watermarking, a kind of digital fingerprint embedded into synthetic audio. It's invisible to the human ear, but detectable by verification tools. The goal is simple. Make it easier to identify when a voice is AI generated. Some companies are also adding consent-based voice training, requiring proof that the speaker has authorized their voice to be cloned. It's not universal yet, but it's becoming a standard. Telecom providers are joining the fight. Carriers are expanding caller authentication systems, the same technology used to flag spam calls, to help identify suspicious patterns associated with AI-driven scams. These systems can't detect cloned voices directly, but they can identify the behavior around them. Rapid call bursts, spoofed numbers, and unusual routing. Cybersecurity firms are building new detection tools. Some companies now offer synthetic voice analysis, software that can flag audio with signs of AI generation. These tools look for micropatterns in speech that humans can't hear, tiny timing inconsistencies, unnatural frequency curves, or digital artifacts left behind by voice models. They're not perfect, but they're improving quickly. Law enforcement agencies are adapting too. Police departments and federal agencies are issuing public advisories, training officers to recognize AI-based fraud, and updating reporting systems to track synthetic media crimes. Investigators are learning how to trace the digital footprints behind these scams, burner numbers, crypto wallets, and the online marketplaces where criminals buy and sell AI tools. On the policy side, governments are debating new regulations. Some proposals focus on identity protection, making it illegal to clone someone's voice without consent. Others aim to require disclosure labels on synthetic audio used in media, advertising, or political communication. There's also growing interest in AI accountability laws, which would require companies to build safeguards into their voice generation systems. But here's the challenge. Technology evolves faster than legislation, and scammers evolve faster than both. That's why industry and policy responses, while important, aren't enough on their own. They create guardrails, they build awareness, they make detection possible. but they don't replace the most powerful defense: inform people who know how these scams work and how to respond. In the next segment, we'll bring this back to the human level, why this matters, and why emotional cybercrime represents a new frontier in digital trust. At the center of every AI voice scam, beneath the technology, beneath the tactics, beneath the headlines, is a human story. And that's why this matters, because these scams don't just target our devices, they target our relationships. When someone hears the voice of a loved one in danger, the reaction is immediate and deeply human. It's instinct, it's protection, it's love. Scammers know this. They're not exploiting software vulnerabilities, they're exploiting emotional ones. They're weaponizing the very thing that makes us human, our connection to the people we care about. And that's what makes this new wave of cybercrime so different. It's not just financial fraud, it's emotional manipulation, it's psychological disruption, it's the theft of trust. Victims often describe the same experience. The moment they heard the voice, logic disappeared. Their heart took over. Even after the scam is exposed, the emotional impact lingers, the fear, the confusion, the sense of violation. Some people struggle with guilt, wondering why they didn't recognize the deception. Others feel shaken because the voice they trusted was used against them. This is why the conversation matters, because we're entering an era where authenticity is no longer guaranteed. Where hearing a familiar voice doesn't automatically mean safety. Where trust must be paired with verification. But here's the hopeful part. Humans adapt, families adapt, communities adapt. We learn new habits. We build new safeguards. We talk openly about threats instead of hiding them. And in doing so, we reclaim our confidence in a world where technology can imitate the people we love. The human element is the heart of this issue, and it's also the solution. Awareness, communication, and calm verification are powerful tools. They protect not just our finances, but our emotional well-being. In our final segment, we'll bring this episode home with a call to awareness and a reminder that in the age of AI, staying informed is one of the strongest forms of protection we have. As we close today's episode, I want to bring this conversation back to something simple, something human: awareness. Because in a world where AI can imitate the voices we trust most, staying informed becomes one of the strongest forms of protection we have. These scams aren't about technology alone. They're about emotion, they're about urgency, they're about fear. And that's why awareness matters. When you understand how these scams work, you're harder to fool. When your family knows the signs, you're harder to manipulate. When your community talks openly about digital threats, everyone becomes safer. So here's the call to action. Have the conversation. Share what you've learned. Make sure the people you care about know that voice cloning is real, it's accessible, and it's being used to exploit trust. Set up your verification code. Practice your callback protocol. Build habits that turn panic into pause and pause into clarity. And remember this: technology will keep evolving. Scammers will keep adapting. But so will we. We can stay ahead by staying aware, by treating digital safety as part of everyday life, not as an afterthought, by recognizing that in the age of AI, protecting our emotional well-being is just as important as protecting our data. Thank you for joining me today on the Digital Revolution. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay connected to your family, your community, and the truth behind the voices you hear. We'll continue this conversation in future episodes as we explore the evolving landscape of AI, cybersecurity, and the human stories at the center of it all.